I see the Peter. You know I got the Jones for my own Rashida. Can you put me on with the Nagarita? She stay on my dome, she gon' pull on me, pull like weed inside me. She my queen.
Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Civic Queen. Today, we're going to be discussing how laws are made in the state of Texas. All right, so I'm going to get started by first sharing my screen. So just to give a brief overview of what we'll cover during this training, we'll first start with the legislative timeline, giving some specific dates about when things have to be accomplished. We'll then move into the lawmaking process, go over a few bills that I believe should be supported and opposed, and then I'll give some information about different forms of direct action. The legislative timeline includes 6 key dates. November 9th was the first day that bills and joint resolutions were able to be filed with the chief clerk of the session. January 12th is when the legislature convened. In the state of Texas, legislators meet every 2 years and at other times when convened by the governor. These are what we call special sessions. March 12th is the deadline for unrestricted filing of bills and joint resolutions other than local bills, emergency appropriations, and emergency matters submitted by the governor. May 31st is when the legislature will adjourn. The regular session cannot last longer than 140 days according to Texas law. June 12th is a deadline for every bill that has passed both houses of the legislature to be presented to the governor for approval. And lastly, August 30th is the first day that laws passed by the legislature takes effect, with the exception of the General Appropriation Act. This is a graphic that shows exactly how a bill is passed. And so I'm gonna go through each step, letting you know exactly what has to take place in order for this item to move forward. In the state of Texas, legislation can be introduced by 4 different entities. They can come from state legislators, people from the community, an organization, or an interim committee. The House has 150 members, the Senate has 31 members, and sessions are held biannually for 140 days. Bills can originate in either chamber. And once a bill is introduced, it's then scheduled for a first reading and referred to a committee. After the committee has done its work, it's then referred to the committee chair, where the chair can either refuse to schedule a bill for the committee hearing or approve it and move it on to the next phase. At this point, fiscal impact statements are prepared and distributed to the committee. And this is a part of the bill analysis. After which public hearings are scheduled and members of the community are invited to share testimony about whether they approve or oppose this bill. It is then debated and amended if necessary, and then that is when a committee report is created. So the majority vote of the committee membership is required in order for it to move on, in order for a bill to move forward in the process. Once a bill receives a majority vote from the committee it was assigned to, it is then sent to the calendars committee, where another majority vote is needed for it to be set on the House floor. Once a bill is set for the House floor, a second reading is scheduled, and then time is set aside to debate and make amendments to the bill if necessary before casting a vote. In the event that there is a tie, or if a bill doesn't receive a majority vote, a third reading is then scheduled and a last vote is taken. After this vote is cast, the bill is then sent to the Senate with the amendments attached. It is then set on the Senate floor. And the first reading is scheduled and the bill is referred to a committee. After the committee has done its work, it then begins the process of tagging. This is where a senator may call for written notice of a hearing 48 hours in advance, which is a tactic used to slow down or defeat a bill. After the tagging process is complete, public hearings are then scheduled so the community members can share public testimony. After which the bill is debated and amendments are made before the committee report is created. And in order to move forward, a majority vote of the committee is required. Once a majority vote has been received from the committee, the bill is then placed on the regular order of business, where a 2/3 vote is required to bring the bill to the Senate floor. After that vote has been received, a second reading is scheduled, and then time is set aside for debating and additional amendments to be made. A senator may filibuster and hold the floor for an unlimited debate, which is another tactic that can be used to defeat or delay a bill. After the bill has been debated and amended, the senators then cast a vote deciding whether or not it should move forward. And if a tie is reached or there's failure to gain a majority vote, a third reading is then scheduled and another vote is cast. If amendments are made to the bill on the Senate floor, it is then sent back to the House floor so that the amendments can be approved before starting the process of enrollment. If the House floor does not approve of the amendments to the bill, it is then sent to a conference committee where a decision is made about whether or not the bill will proceed to the enrollment process. A bill is sent to the conference committee only if both chambers fail to reconcile differences or gain a majority vote. After the enrollment process has been initiated for the bill, it is then sent to be signed by the Senate in the presence of the House, after which it will be sent to the governor for final approval. Once the governor receives a bill, there are 3 actions that can be taken. If they choose to veto the bill, it means that it has been rejected, but if the legislature can override this decision with a 2/3 vote. If the governor decides to sign a bill, it then goes into effect after 90 days. Lastly, the governor can choose to leave a bill unsigned, which means that it will automatically go into effect after 90 days. I know that this was a long process, but I think it's super important for us to understand exactly how laws are made in our state so that when we're petitioning for change, we understand the process and are informed about the way that decisions are made. Now we're going to move into bills that I believe should be supported during this ledge session. Here are 6 bills that I believe will make a great positive impact on our communities. House Bill 22 would allow polling locations to designate 2 parking spots that can be used for curbside voting for persons with disabilities. House Bill 58 allows for high school students to pre-register to vote when they are 17, and the registration will automatically process after their 18th birthday. House Bill 66 would allow every election day to be designated as a state holiday so that residents do not have to request time off work to engage. House Bill 93 would allow college campuses to be designated as a polling location if they have at least 9,000 students actively enrolled. House Bill 161 would allow residents who have been previously convicted of a felony to qualify to become a registered voter after they have been released from prison. And lastly, House Bill 1465 would allow persons who are caretakers of persons with certain disabilities to qualify for the voting by mail process. Next, we're going to discuss bills that I believe would be harmful to our community. House Bill 25 would prohibit state employees from distributing vote by mail applications to the public, which I think would affect us greatly. House Bill 329 would allow the Department of Homeland Security to cross-reference their database with state voter registration lists, which I believe would lead to a higher number of folks being detained and ultimately deported in the event that they mistakenly filled out a voter registration form, not clearly understanding the rules and regulations surrounding it. House Bill 463 will prohibit persons who have been previously convicted of a felony from serving as a poll worker, instead of only prohibiting those who have a misdemeanor after committing election fraud, right? So this would further isolate folks who have been previously convicted if they would like to engage in the civic process as a poll worker after they are released. House Bill 574 allows for an elevated penalty for persons who commit election fraud. Right now, it's a Class A misdemeanor, but will become a felony of the second degree if this bill is passed. House Bill 1026 would eliminate the use of the volunteer deputy registrar program and put the entire burden of voter registration on the Secretary of State. And lastly, House Bill 1368, similar to House Bill 574, would allow for persons who commit election fraud to be convicted of a felony with mandated jail time at a state facility. As we prepare to engage during this ledge session, I think it's super important for us to understand the different types of engagement and the effect they'll have. A petition is a formal written request, typically one signed by many people, appealing to authority with respect to a particular cause. And this can be a physical signing of a petition or an online system that's used to collect signatures for a petition. A survey is a research method used for collecting data from a predefined group of respondents to gain information and insight into various issues of interest. This is often used by politicians or community groups who are trying to see the effect that a certain bill may have on a population. A letter writing campaign is a method of making your group's voice heard on issues that are important. They inform elected officials and decision makers of the implications of their actions and encourage them to act in accordance with the wishes of their constituencies. A social media campaign is a coordinated marketing designed to reinforce information or sentiments about an issue, elected official, or policy through at least one social media platform. It can be limited to a single network or take place across multiple social media platforms. A tweet storm is an example of a social media campaign, which is where a group orchestrates a group of folks that send the same message to an elected official at the same time on the same day, which draws attention to it, which is an effective tool that can be taken, for instance, when you're trying to praise or shame a public official for a stance they've taken or something they've done. Phone and text banking is a form of outreach used by political campaigns and nonprofit organizations where volunteers call potential voters or other community members in an effort to identify supporters, raise funds, get people to attend events, and persuade them to vote for a candidate or a cause. A protest is a public expression of objection, disapproval, or dissent towards an idea or action, typically a political one. Protests can take many forms, from individual statements to mass demonstrations. That is our training for today. I hope that it was informative and gave you some tools that you can use as you prepare to engage during this ledge session. Let's get to work.